In the small village of Henku, nestled in the heart of West Africa, lived a young woman of 25 years old. This village, composed of mud brick houses, was known for its simplicity, but also for its mysteries buried in ancient traditions. Maya had not had steady work for several months. The days passed slowly and she often found herself alone, wandering through the dusty alleys of this village she had known since birth. Maya was not like the other young women in the village. While many dreamed of getting married or joining a traditional activity such as weaving or farming, she had only one obsession: to find a purpose, a reason to exist in this world that seemed to have forgotten her. Her parents had been gone for a long time, taken by a mysterious illness that had struck the village, leaving Maya alone with her pain and incomprehension. One morning, after a sleepless night, Maya got up earlier than usual. She dressed simply, took an empty basket and headed towards a place she had never really observed closely: the village cemetery. This cemetery, located outside the village, had been abandoned for years. No one went there and the graves of ancestors and strangers were overgrown with weeds and the dust of time. When Maya arrived at the cemetery gate, a strange sensation ran through her. The air was cooler here, like a breeze coming from the depths of the earth. The solitude of the place seemed almost soothing, and she felt a strange, unparalleled attraction. As she approached the graves, she noticed that many had no names, forgotten by all. These graves in particular were overrun with wild grass, their tombstones covered with moss and dirt. There was a crowd of faceless souls, abandoned by those who had forgotten them. A feeling of compassion seized her, and without really understanding why, she decided to act. She began to clean the first grave, scrubbing the stone with a cloth and removing the weeds that invaded the ground. The work was difficult and she had dirty hands, but she felt strangely at peace. It was as if each sweep of the broom she brought to the grave was a way of giving hope to these lost souls. The hours passed and Maya cleaned relentlessly, one grave after another. She lost herself in this task, forgetting fatigue, time, and the heat of the sun. Gradually, a strange sensation made itself felt in the air. It seemed that the cemetery, until then silent, was breathing with her. The birds had fallen silent and the wind blew harder around her like a distant murmur. She had this curious impression that she was not alone. As she finished cleaning the last grave of the day, Maya heard a light sound like a breath. She turned abruptly, but there was no one there. She shrugged her shoulders, thinking it was the wind, but this breath was not that of the wind. It was a barely audible murmur, a word that seemed to come from the earth itself. "Thank you." She shivered automatically. It was not her own imagination. She was sure of it. She had heard that voice. It was a soft voice, almost a whisper coming from somewhere beneath her feet. But from where? The cemetery seemed calm. Nothing moved. She shook herself and wiped the sweat beading on her forehead. It must be fatigue. She told no one about it. But this experience, though inexplicable, changed something in her. She felt strangely connected to this place, as if a part of herself belonged to this silent and mysterious cemetery. She decided to return the next day to continue her work. It was the beginning of a strange adventure. A simple act of cleaning would soon lead her on a journey that would change her life forever. Maya had no idea that what she had just done by cleaning these forgotten graves would awaken something much greater than she could have imagined. An ancient mystery buried in the depths of the cemetery was about to awaken, and with it a powerful and unsuspected force that would transform her life forever. One morning, after several days of hard work, Maya went to the cemetery as usual. The wind blew lightly, bringing with it a strange sensation, a shiver that ran through the air. As she knelt before an old grave she had not yet cleaned, she felt a slight tremor under her hands. A cold breeze brushed her neck and a murmur was heard, faint but distinct. It was not the wind, it was a whisper. She froze, eyes wide, searching for the origin of this sound. Nothing around her seemed to move, but the whisper persisted. It was not a human voice. It was an ancient murmur, as if the stones themselves were speaking. Maya stood up slowly and suddenly, the dead leaves that littered the ground began to swirl in a small whirlwind before her. She didn't have time to react when the air around her seemed to thicken. Undefined shadows floated in the shade of the trees, gliding like forgotten silhouettes, watching. She breathed deeply and turned towards the grave she was cleaning. There was something strange about this tombstone. The more she looked at it, the more she felt an inexplicable connection being established. The grave seemed ancient, older than the others, and the inscription engraved on the stone was barely legible, erased by time. This name, Marcus, the memory of a lost name, forgotten by the living. The murmur grew louder, almost urgent. She lowered her eyes and suddenly a pale light illuminated the grave. A ray of moonlight pierced through the clouds and landed directly on the engraved name. Maya felt a strange warmth rising within her. It was as if the air around her had filled with force. A gentle but powerful force that seemed to connect her to this cemetery, to its forgotten souls. She gently placed her hand on the grave, and at that precise moment, a clear voice, faint but sharp, resonated in her mind. "Maya, thank you." The young woman jumped, hastily withdrawing her hand. Her heart was pounding. She straightened back, eyes wide open. The voice seemed to come from the grave itself. A soft voice, filled with gratitude but also with sadness. She turned abruptly. Behind her, a few steps away, stood a silhouette. An old woman dressed in a dusty wrapper, hair white as snow. Her eyes shone with an intense light, and a strange smile, like that of an awakened dreamer, appeared on her wrinkled face. The old woman advanced slowly, but she was not walking. She seemed to float. Her feet barely touched the ground. She extended her hand towards Maya, and in silence, an icy wind blew around her. "They have chosen you, Maya," said the voice of the old woman, clear and captivating. "They have called you, and you can no longer go back." Maya froze, her whole body trembling with fear and confusion. The old woman was not alive. She was not a simple illusion. She was a spirit, one of the village ancestors, perhaps that of Marcus, the one who had guided her here. Before Maya could respond, the spirit of the old woman disappeared in a cloud of mist, leaving behind only the sensation of an indefinable presence, as if the shadows themselves had engulfed her. The earth trembled slightly under her feet and a heavy, almost suffocating silence settled around her. Maya knew that her life was now linked to that of the dead in this cemetery. An ancient mystery had just touched her. An invisible power was growing within her, and the spirits were guiding her. But for what purpose? She had no idea. In the village, rumors circulated, and the looks towards her changed. The whispers about her strange behavior became more insistent. Some said she had changed. Her skin was more radiant, almost supernatural. Her eyes had acquired a strange depth, as if she saw through people, as if she knew their most intimate secrets. But it was not just her appearance that worried the villagers. It was the mysterious events that had been occurring since Maya had started cleaning the graves. The harvests were less abundant than usual, and several livestock fell ill for no apparent reason. The village, once prosperous, seemed to suffer under an invisible burden, and the inhabitants, looking for culprits, found in Maya an ideal target. One morning, as she went to the market to buy supplies, she noticed that everyone avoided her. The merchants' looks were icy and the children followed her at a distance, murmuring words of distrust and fear. As she approached the fabric stand, an old woman, looking tense, looked at her and spat on the ground. "Witch," she murmured. "It's not you who cleans these graves, it's evil that uses you." Maya felt an icy shiver run down her spine. She stepped back a few paces, but before she could respond, several other villagers approached her. One of them, a young man named Daniel, pointed his finger at Maya with an accusatory air. "What you're doing is not natural," he shouted in a loud voice. "Since you started maintaining these graves, strange things have been happening. You've made a pact with the spirits and you want to turn our village into a cemetery." Maya's heart was pounding. She had never wanted any of this. She was just a lost young woman who just wanted to bring a little light to forgotten souls. But faced with the accusation, she remained silent. The whispers intensified and she felt the weight of the looks upon her. Before she could defend herself, several women from the village, led by the old woman, approached her, hands outstretched as if to grab her. "You have awakened the dead, Maya, and now you must pay." The laughter of some villagers resonated in the air, heavy with fear and disdain. The villagers were now convinced that she had made a pact with the spirits of the cemetery. "Witch," cried one of them. "Witch, witch." A palpable tension gripped the village. Maya was cornered, surrounded by looks filled with fear and anger. She felt as if the walls were closing in around her. She turned her eyes towards the cemetery as if seeking an answer there. That was where it all started, where everything had been tied together. But the cemetery was calm outside the village, far from the cries and accusations. As Maya stood alone in the middle of this hostile crowd, a familiar voice, faint and distant, resonated in her mind. Fear nothing. The weeks that followed forever changed Maya's life. As the village continued to sink into scarcity, a strange transformation occurred around her small house, just at the edge of the cemetery. Maya, always guided by this invisible force, decided to cultivate a garden, a simple garden of fruits and vegetables in the fertile soil near Marcus's grave. She had seen the lands around her become astonishingly more fertile each time she touched them. The weeds and wild grasses disappeared by themselves, and the plants seemed to thrive in an almost supernatural way. At first, no one understood how a simple garden, apparently banal, could resist the drought and poverty that affected other lands. Within a few weeks, her garden had become an oasis of greenery. Fruit trees laden with mangoes, papayas and oranges appeared where previously there had been only dry and sterile soil. The sight of this lush garden so close to the cemetery first aroused the curiosity of the villagers. But as the fruits ripened, a black anger invaded the hearts of some. Maya seemed to have found a way to make life grow where others failed. There was no question of letting a witch bring prosperity to the village while everyone suffered. Maya's success awakened the villagers' jealousy. The mere sight of the fruits falling from the trees in her garden was interpreted as an affront to their collective misery. The whispers became accusations. She has made a pact with the spirits to attract prosperity. But at what price? The villagers gathered, furious. They met to decide Maya's future. One morning, a group of young men went to her house with torches and tools, determined to destroy her garden and put an end to what they called her reign as a witch. They thought that if they destroyed her crops, the curse on the village would be lifted. Maya, feeling the rise of anger in the village, calmly advanced to the door of her house. She knew what was going to happen. But she could not flee. She had learned too much, understood too much to back down. Now, the group of villagers arrived before her. They pointed their weapons at Maya, and one of them, a young man named Thomas, shouted, "Witch, you did this to enslave us, so that we would fear you. We will destroy what you have created and put an end to your evil power." The wind blew hard around them, but Maya remained motionless, eyes closed, concentrating on the energy that surrounded her. An intense sensation, an interior warmth rose within her. It was as if the earth beneath her feet was reacting to her will. The sky darkened slowly, as if the elements themselves were taking sides. She murmured in a low voice, an incantation that the spirits had transmitted to her, an ancient song that resonated in her bones. And suddenly, the entire nature seemed to react. The wind rose in violent gusts like an unleashed fury. The trees around the garden began to quiver, their roots twisting as if seeking to free themselves from the earth. The villagers stepped back, frightened. The earth began to tremble under their feet like a silent alarm. Then the sky darkened suddenly. A lightning bolt striking the ground right next to Maya made a tree in the garden explode in an explosion of wood and fire. At that precise instant, the spirits of the cemetery manifested. Translucent silhouettes, blurred and powerful, emerged from the graves and headed towards the villagers. The villagers, now terrified, began to run in all directions. One of them, an older man, threw himself on his knees, begging Maya's clemency. That day, Maya understood that her power was not just a blessing, it was a curse too. She had awakened something much greater than what she had imagined, and she could no longer go back. Her bonds with the spirits were now too powerful. She didn't know how long she could control them. But one thing was certain, she would henceforth be a target for all those who feared her.